Good afternoon. I'm out a little late because I'm writing paper. That's what lawyers do. I'm writing more paper than I want to write right now, but you got to do it. People don't understand that litigation, like most of life, is about conflict. And the worst part of it are the distortions of fact, of law. When I was a puppy prosecutor, I noticed that cases would get cited, and I'd look them up, and they wouldn't say what the lawyer said they said. And I just couldn't imagine that. And I wrote some pretty harsh papers in opposition. And then I became aware that there were some of these lawyers were overextended, and they were looking at summaries of what the cases were about. And so they really didn't know what those cases were about. There were exceptions, of course. But the real world challenges, well, our expectations, our platonic expectations of the ideal. Talking about the ideal is a nation that includes those who want us to stay in Afghanistan and fight, has some of the very same people recoiling when our people, that is American citizens and those who helped us during the occupation in Afghanistan, are hurt or killed. And no one should take it lightly, but it's a real reminder to say things like, why didn't we take it seriously before we did what we did? And I don't know, the human animal doesn't seem able to calculate the cost of a risky adventure, and war is always a risky adventure. And most wars, if you read the studies, they always begin with a lie. You know, if it's Cuba, remember the Maine. You know, there's always some pretext. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution for Vietnam, they didn't attack us, we were in their waters, etc. There's, weapons of mass destruction, Iraq. It goes on and on. So I am upset that these young men and women in their 20s were blown up the other day. And I am upset in order to save many more at the airport on a second attack. Americans had to shoot at a truck that had collateral damage. And a war is always about making that calculation. Do you need to make this shot? Do you need to drop this material? And the rules of war, they may apply in a PR way, but from my experience, they don't apply when they're on the ground. And that's the problem with Afghanistan. You have to wonder if the way we've been able to get these two targets in recent days, I'm talking about the attacks that we made, if we didn't get cooperation from the Taliban about ISIS, who are their enemy. You know, if you share enemies, you could be friends. Well, maybe we can't be friends, but we can help each other. And everybody's asking, are we going to stay in Afghanistan and so forth? Well, that's a negotiation. They may want us to be there because they need to offer a face to the world that allows them to get some support now that they've taken over the government, that is the Taliban. So we're hardly going to give away our bargaining position by saying, don't worry about it, we're going to work it out with the Taliban, we're going to be there. And I don't know that we will be there. But I do think that the way diplomats work, there's going to be bargaining. We're going to have an interest in Americans who are there and people who helped us who are still there. They're going to be interested in being able to start a government. One of the ironies of that government is that Afghanistan has supplied 85% of the heroin around the world. And this was true when I was a young federal prosecutor, and I prosecuted cases. I can't say any of the heroin came from there, but there was heroin that came from Thailand to California and to Canada and to New York. And I had that part of the case in New York, and I had to go to Canada to investigate it. And the argument was that this heroin was actually a medium of exchange used by the CIA. Who knows? And a bunch of the heroin got missing from Canada. So these are pretty complicated issues. In other words, heroin can become a medium of exchange in the world market, despite what we say about getting rid of it and everything else. So I think Afghanistan is going to be a complicated place. Sorry if I'm rumbling around, but I don't think any of these things are set, and what I'm doing is speculating. But I think the speculation is probably spot on. It's an interesting story about how the National Institute of Health was involved with developing a lethal virus, not to be released supposedly. I don't know, just to see if you could do it. This is exactly the thing we're concerned about laboratories in the Far East doing. What is wrong with people? But then what else do we have? We have in Virginia, we have a guy, a Democrat, Chap Peterson, who, get this, he introduces a bill that encourages schools to take all sorts of precautions and seemingly involving vaccination.